Good morning. It's good to see you today. If I haven't met you, my name's Ruth. I'm one of the pastors here. I look after pastoral care on the team with Josh and Jared. You'll notice that we have some lovely decorations up today, and that's because we had a wedding here yesterday. Jonty and Katia, who's a young couple in our church, were married here yesterday, so we had a great time celebrating with them, and it's just lovely to use a building to celebrate a couple getting married. I'm glad we started off the singing today with Build Your Kingdom here, because what I'm going to be talking about is exactly that, and give you some practical tools for how you can be connected and find belonging in this church community. This is part 2 of a series called Plus One, The Power of Belonging. Last week we talked about the opportunity the church has to be a place to call home and a place to belong, and so many people came up to me and said, yeah, it's true, this place is a place where I belong. Somebody has been away, Maureen was away visiting family in the eastern states for the last 2 months, and she said before the service she came in and she just went, I'm home, this is where I belong. And then that's exactly what we talked about, which was really lovely. And it's interesting, when you spend your week sitting in this content thinking about what you're going to talk about, then things pop up on your radar. And this week I had an email to my inbox, something I subscribe to, and it was highlighting something called the Friendship Lab. It's a new initiative that's about to launch online. And here's the intro to their website. Why is adult friendship and belonging so difficult today? The reasons are many, and from the decline of community gatherings to simple busyness and frequent house moves. Friend making is a skill no one teaches us, leading many to leave it to chance. And for too long, we've overlooked friendship for romance, undervalued in popular culture, pushed to the margins by work and family demands, weakened by a global pandemic and growing social polarisation. It's time to get intentional about this foundational bond. And the website goes on to say, friendship is essential for our happiness and well-being, and as yet, as many as 25% of us have no close friends. At the Friendship Lab, we empower you with the wisdom and skills to make your friendships thrive. Now, the Friendship Lab partnered with a UK university in research so they could back up what they thought they could see in the community and have some evidence for that. And the research confirmed that in the UK, 20% of adults have no close friends and 10% have no friends at all. And in fact, the number without friends has quadrupled, they reckon, since 1990. And in Australia, we're actually worse statistics than that. So 25% of us have no one to turn to, and 30% of people are not part of a friendship group. So can you believe that we've got to the point where we need training courses and guidance to make friends? And you know who started this initiative is interesting. It's a person who's a follower of Jesus, and some of you might know him or remember him. Sheridan Voisey was a well-respected Australian radio host and the founder of a faith-based radio show called Open House in Australia. He reached audiences right across Australia. And he and his wife have a very moving story. You can read it in their book, Resurrection Year. That took them in the end to the UK, where his wife became a researcher. She works at Oxford, and he continued being an author, a speaker and a broadcaster, and he still comes to Australia to speak. I follow him on social media. And he went on a personal retreat as part of some research for a book. And on that retreat, Sheridan asked himself, what problem would you attempt to solve if you could? And reflecting on all the years of feedback from his readers and his listeners, the problem that stood out most to him was friendlessness. And so from that internal God-given driving force of helping solve friendlessness, he began to research. And he said, if friendship is rarely written about, it is sung about even less. Scroll through your playlist and it proves it. We value romance over friendship if the current hits are any indication. And yet friendship may be our most fundamental bond. When a business fails and family bonds break or romance filters away, it is our friends that we turn. And then if you go to the mission and vision of his new website, here's the vision of the Friendship Lab. Very simple. We envisage a day when every person has at least 3 2 a.m. friends. That's their vision. So the church has a really unique opportunity to step into this belonging gap. And we're going to go back to the passage of Acts that we read last week, and we're going to look at the experiences of the early church and what they have to say about friendship and belonging. And last week I suggested there were 4 stances that we could adopt that are found in this passage of Scripture to help us belong to the family of the church. The first one was to believe, and we did last week, we talked about believe. And today we're going to talk about stay, move in, and make space. Last week we covered believe as an act of belonging. And we said that in God's family, belonging and believing go together. The two are held together. And it follows that to grow in a belonging to God and his people and an increasing faith and trust in Jesus is essential. And there would have been people who followed Jesus in that passage of Acts that we looked at. They followed Jesus around and they were part of the crowd and they hung out with the disciples and they were made welcome and they might have felt very much part of the community and they heard the stories and they watched the miracles. But at some point there came a choice to have to believe. And we want the church. We want to be a church that inspires people to follow Jesus and believe in him. And we'll help you do that. Not a blind faith, but an informed faith. And we can help you make that choice, which is why we're doing things like Alpha. So this week I want to focus in on stay and move in and make space. So let's go back to that passage in Acts, and I'm not going to read the whole lot that we read last week. But let's go to the end of it and let's read these verses from Acts 2:41 to 47. And I'm going to read them in the Message because the Message just gives us a little bit of a different spin and a different flavour and it helps some different things stand out. So you'll remember last week there was this amazing experience that the disciples had and there was the gift of the Holy Spirit and then Peter did this epic teaching, which culminated into the people asking, what do we need to do to be saved? And he said, believe, turn to God, be baptised, and receive the Holy Spirit. And then it says, that day about 3,000 took him at his word, were baptised and were signed up. They committed themselves to the teaching of the apostles and to life together, the common meal, and the prayers. And everyone was in awe, all those wonders and signs done through the apostles. And all the believers lived in a wonderful harmony, holding everything in common. And they sold whatever they owned and they pooled their resources so that each person's need was met. And they followed a daily discipline of worship in the temple, followed by meals at home, every meal a celebration, exuberant and joyful as they praised God. And this is my favourite line. People in general liked what they saw. Every day their number grew as God added to those who were being saved. People in general loved what they saw. This church will not be or feel like home if the only thing we do is believe. If all we do is have an individual vertical relationship with God, that's not how God called us to live. He called us to love him and believe, but he also called us to love others. And it's not an or. It's not a love God or love others. It's love God and love others. And to love others, we have to be in relationship with them. We have to be in relationship with each other. We can't love from far off. Believe is an essential start and it gives us our faith in Jesus in common. But that passage of scripture does not end in verse 41. It doesn't say about 3,000 were added to the church that day. Great job. Done. End of story. It's not the end of the story, it's actually the beginning of the story. And it's actually the point where friendship and relationship building and the body of the church began. So let's get into the other three aspects of belonging that I have mentioned. And I want to get really practical and relational today. So I have some points that I've picked out with some real life stories, and I'm going to do a little bit of a roving mic thing. The people who I'm going to come up to know that I'm coming up to them. So don't panic if you think I'm randomly going to pick you out and ask you to speak. It's all been choreographed, all right? So let's start off with a stay. The reality is that by the time Generation Z hits their 30s, they've probably had more jobs and lived in more homes than their parents ever did. Now, we know the early church certainly did not live with the same kind of upload mobility that we live in now. And I do wonder if it was easier for them to create that deep sense of belonging that we read in verse 42, because they all pretty much stayed in the same place. And the culture was a lot different to our individualised culture that we are used to in the Western world. And there's nothing inherently wrong with being transient and being upwardly mobile, but we do have to ask, what does that do to our souls? How does our belonging to God and others suffer from frequent transition? And I'm not thinking about stay in the form of just staying in the same place either, although that helps. I also mean in the form of staying and committing to community life. And there's two things that came to mind. I'm sure there's many more, but there's two that came to mind here off the top of my head this week. One is we live in a cancel culture. If we don't like something or someone, we can easily cut ties and move on. If we don't like someone or how someone's behaved or how someone's treated us, we can just block them on social media or block them in real life, just make distance. And I know sometimes there's legitimate reasons to do that, but we're more likely to cancel and move on than work on relationships. And I wonder if there's another aspect that I thought of, waiting for the best offer. You know, with so much knowledge and information and so much choice and opportunity, we have a culture of not committing to things until the last minute. We don't RSVP and commit so easily anymore. We want to wait till the last possible moment so that we can choose to go to something that is the best option. And what does that do to our relationships and our abilities to stay and commit? And I wonder if there's other things, including a generally faster pace of life, meaning that we've seen a drift in past decades where regular church attendance is down to an average of once a month. And that's what we say is normal. And I get why, because life is busy and we're more transient and both adults in a family work full time and we have more income, and with more income we are able to fill up life more with more stuff and more activities and more holidays and bigger mortgages. But more responsibility means less time for relationships. And then you add in the online options, of course, so meetings and catch up, and we can access church online. And there's some big pluses for that. I think that's here to stay, and we have to work with it. But it also has a heap of relational minuses. Online keeps a level of distance in relationship. And then, of course, COVID, that's changed the fabric of society from socially and psychologically. But all of that impacts our relationships and our ability to make friends. Have we got to the point that we need websites and courses to teach us to make friends? Or do we need to teach and encourage people to slow down and make space so there's space for belonging to happen? Over my holidays this year, I've read The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. Brilliant book. It's amazing that the 30-somethings are now writing books to try and revert what we probably had 30 years ago, a slower pace of life, a slowing down. In this passage in Acts, it says the community of believers worshipped at the temple each day and met in homes for communion and shared meals. Now, I don't want to guilt you into being at a church service every week or force you to join a group. But I do question if a once-a-month attendance for an hour to a Christian community is enough for you to really have a true sense of belonging and to build connection and to grow your faith. To have the kind of community we read about in Acts, we need to stay and we need to be committed. It's the life on life with one another that's going to create the connection of bonds and belonging. Belonging to God and others in the community suffers if we have frequent transitions and we never commit to staying. Okay, so I'm going to give you some stories. Let me step down into the audience. Apologies for online. I'm hoping you might be able to see people, but you'll definitely be able to hear us. So I'm going to introduce you. I'll do it this way, sorry. I'm going to introduce you to Pippa and Carl. Stand up, Pippa and Carl. Now, I met Pippa and Carl 20 years ago in this church, just 1 year married and a new baby. Is this the new baby? Yeah. This is the new baby that was with them 20 years ago. And I had a conversation with Pippa and Carl last week, just before the service, and rather than me tell you what they said, I said, Pippa and Carl, would you share what you said to me? Because it's a beautiful picture of what staying means.
So we were married in this church over 20 years ago, and all three of our children were born into this church and dedicated here and went to Sunday school. And then when our youngest was in kindergarten, they were going to school at Swan Christian, and we moved to a church closer to there so that, they could have friends and all the rest of it. And we were there for about 10 years, and then when COVID hit, we just sort of never went back. And work got busy, life got busy. We kind of lost the habit of going to church on a Sunday. Not just the habit, but, we just stopped. And this year we've made a commitment that we want to come back, and we want this to be our home again. Our kids are all kind of doing their own things now, so we can focus on us and our relationships and, just coming home.
That's awesome. Thank you. And in COVID, that's not an uncommon story, and I thank Pippa and Carl for their honesty with that life gets busy. And I just love, because I asked them last week, look, I've seen you a couple of times here, kind of, what's the deal? And they're like, no, we're back. We're here to stay. I'm like, awesome. It's great. Yeah. The believers lived in wonderful harmony, holding everything in common. You can't have that kind of belonging if you don't stay. Let's talk about moving in. Just believing in Jesus, let me start again, moving in. Just believing in Jesus and committing to stay and attend more regularly doesn't guarantee true belonging. We must consistently take the posture to move in. We must move towards others, embracing a life of interdependent relationships over autonomy and independence. And I remember when we came to this church, we'd done the first two steps. We believed we were followers of Jesus, and we came and we wanted to stay, and so we committed to staying and we attended on Sunday regularly. But I remember very distinctly the point where we knew to belong, we needed to move in. We needed to join a group. And we needed to move towards others and to get to know people and them to get to know us. And we also needed to offer our gifts to this church, our skills and our abilities and our passion. The community in Acts grew and added to their numbers daily, those who were being saved, because of the energy they created by moving in and being together. Sharing what they had, giving to the poor, worshipping together and praying together. So let me introduce you to somebody else, or another couple that have moved in, Debbie and Paul. Debbie is here. Is Paul here? Oh yeah, there they are. Now Debbie and Paul came last year, and they've quickly become friends of the family. So they came, stayed, and they've moved in quite quickly, and you might have seen them around. But I've asked them to share with you what it means to move in here.
So the first time we came here was on a Sunday night, a worship session in November, and Paul was playing there. Both of us, we just had a feeling, like a deep feeling, that this was our new home, because we'd been considering finding a closer church to be our new home. And then since then, we've been coming since December, and we've never ever felt like outsiders. We've been treated, we've been so welcomed every Sunday. We're here for a long time afterwards, because there's so many people who always come up and talk to us, and we've just felt so welcomed.
Go, Paul.
So
Tell us where you've chosen to serve and move in. That would be helpful as well.
Yeah, so I was welcomed pretty much after doing Overflow. Had a few people comment on, it's a blessing to have me play. I went, oh okay, there might be a spot on the music. I spoke to Ash, so I've known Ash for some time, and it's how I basically connect with God. It's my kind of language, and it's what I'm passionate about.
And Debbie, tell us how you've stepped in.
I've just started on the coffee machine. The reason I love coffee, so obvious choice. But the reason that I chose to find a team to join was to become part of the community myself, to find my own place in here and to get to know people better.
Awesome. Thank you, Paul and Debbie. And their gorgeous children, Alex and Becky, who are sitting alongside them. So great to have them part of the church family and move in with us, which is great. Problem with going down and coming back is I've got to find my spot all the time. So if you want to serve and be part of a group, we're going to give you an opportunity to do that today. In that passage in Acts, the people followed a daily discipline of worship in the temple. Commitment and belonging takes discipline. Just like any family, you have move in and take part. It will cost you something. But we will get out of it what we put into it. And for those of us who've moved in, maybe we have to be careful that we don't stay too settled and too comfortable in our groups. I think sometimes others might lack a place to belong because they haven't been invited to move in and be with you. We need to get better at helping others to move in with us. Anyone who's lived in a share house or had someone come and live with them, we all know that that takes some adjustment to feel comfortable with a new person. And it takes a mix on either side. So we need to do well in moving in. We need to take the initiative, but we also need to take the initiative to help others move in. Okay, let's talk about make space. To gain a sense of belonging, we need to take initiative. We need to take the focus off ourselves. Too often I can wait for others to check in on me or invite me over or put together a social gathering. But when I take initiative, whether it's inviting people to our home or offering to have a coffee, I usually find others are quick to accept. My experience is that the more I take initiative to cultivate community with others, the more I feel I belong with those people. And when we take the focus of our own need for belonging and create space for others to belong, we find ourselves surrounded by those who are happy to have us in their lives. And this final step is part of the great Christian paradox of the Christian faith. If you want real life, you have to give yours away. And if you want to find yourself, you have to lose yourself. Those early Christians shared everything and then they gave their lives away. And we need to be prepared to have a posture of making room. I was in a Zoom call this week, and one of the churches I was in a Zoom call with is a church in Perth down in Mandurah, around about, I think, 350 people. They, in the last 6 months, they don't know why and they don't know how, have had 150 people gradually enter their church community in the last 6 months. And I can tell you they are desperately trying to make room for these people and get them connected. How exciting would that be? And would we be prepared to do the same for new people that come into our community? Because if we don't make room for people, they might not feel like they're welcome to stay. And my favourite line in this Bible passage in the Message is, people in general liked what they saw. When we make space and people like what they see, it creates an opportunity for God to add to us those that are being saved. So I've got 2 more stories of people in our church community who are making room for others or making room in their lives to connect with others. Now, Antoinette Wilson and Shirley, Antoinette's in kids' church, so Shirley's actually going to share with us what happened last year about a coffee group that they started. So Shirley, if you can tell us what happened and how that started.
Yep. I was having coffee with a friend, and Antoinette was in the same coffee shop waiting for somebody else, and her friend didn't arrive, so she came and joined us. And my friend said, I hear the men have a coffee day every week, and the women don't. Why don't the women have a coffee day? So Antoinette and I said, well, we could organise one. So it was different day from the men's day, so it suited us better. And so at 10:30 on a Friday morning, a group of ladies meet at the Dome. It's open to anybody who wants to come and join us. And we have between 5 and 11 people, varies, and just you're very welcome if you're free on a Friday morning.
How amazing is that? So just a need for seeing that women connect. And to go, you know what, we're going to do something about that. And they have. Every Friday they've been meeting since last year. And if you wanted to meet with the men are 10:30 on a Thursday.
10 o'clock on a Thursday.
10. Cyrenian Cafe for the men, 10 o'clock. 10:30 at the Dome for women. Great opportunity, making room for people, doing relationship with people. Now, the other thing that Antoinette has also done, she retired last year and she's just like sailing. She came and talked to me about she wanted to start a new life group for women. Again, she's in the kids' church area, but I want to introduce you to Kirsten. Here she is. Now, Kirsten, come up here. Oh, wow. Kirsten, happy birthday. Now, Kirsten, I know you. Kirsten, you live a full and busy life. Kirsten and Matt have 5 kids. They also do respite foster caring as well. Matt's in Pebbles with his oldest daughter serving. So they've well and truly stayed, moved in. And these guys make room for people. And Kirsten, I want to just for you to share, Kirsten's not in one life group, she's in 2. So tell us what groups you're connected into and what difference that makes and why you make room in your busy life to do that.
Sure. We're in 2 very different life groups, and one is our family life group and one is just for me. So the family one, having a big family, lots of kids, it's been really hard to be in a life group. And so for years we weren't in one. And then we got invited lovingly when we joined this church just before COVID. We got invited into one. Didn't quite work with kids still. Not like when my parents used to go to life group and you take the kids and they all sleep or they all lie down or whatever. I was like, this does not work with my children. So it didn't quite work, and I ended up being the only one going at night time, and I was like, oh. And then we got invited into another one, which was with families with young kids, and actually younger than ours. And we've tried a few different things over the years to try to make that work too, and, hiring babysitters and trying to do it during the day. And anyway, now we've got something that seems to work, but still we're very sporadic when we can make it because the kids are sick, or it's on the weekend, it's Sunday afternoon, we're really tired. So we find that the family one our kids love, because the kids all get to play with the kids, it's during the day, and then midweek, every second Wednesday night, we'll have a Zoom meeting with just the parents once all the kids are asleep, and that's when we try to connect and try to do something, try to pray. But I reckon Matt's more regular at that than I am. So this year, all my kids are in school full-time, first time, and I really felt like this year's my time to kind of recover a bit. We're not fostering at the moment. I've got some health things, and I felt like God was like, rest. And then Antoinette's women's group popped up during the day. It's the first time I thought I could go. Don't have any other little kids. I'm not working. And I'd met Antoinette from our previous 2 life groups ago and some other women from there. So it's like I went in and I already had friends. And as soon as I walked in, Antoinette was like, we are going to sit at Jesus' feet like Mary and soak him in. I was like, yes, this is a place for me. So, yeah.
Awesome. You know, when Antoinette came to me last year, she said, I'm about to retire. I'm going to spend a couple of months praying about what I think God wants me to do, but I think he wants me to start a group for women where we can study the Bible deeper. And so, of course, we empowered her and said, go for it. And she started that 2 weeks ago. She's had 2 already. And with 9 or 10 women already. So if you're interested in that space on a Monday with Antoinette. So beautiful examples of people that are feeling prompted to make room, either make room for others or make room in their own life to nurture their own faith in Jesus. So thank you to those people who shared. It's just a snapshot of what happens in this community. And I'm sure there's plenty more stories to share out there. So here's the challenge and here's the invitation. On your seats today, there's an opportunity for you to join and belong to the life of this church. There's opportunities to believe, to stay, to move in, or to make space. And I wonder if you would make room in your life to just +1 this year. Just add one way you know will help increase your sense of belonging so that you can grow in your faith alongside others. To create a vibrant community of belonging, we need you. And we need who you are, and we need your gifts to make this church be just like the early church. Where are you on your journey in belonging at LBC? Maybe you're at Stay. Maybe you've been looking for a church to belong to and you think this might be the place for you and you just want to make the step and commitment to stay. And if that's you, then we'd love to know about that so that we can help you feel connected and inform you about what happens here. It would be great if you could fill out this card and let us know who you are so we can add you to the database, send you our e-news. There's no need to fill out any other boxes if all you're at is just to stay. We just want you to let us know. And if that's you, then we want to say welcome to the family at LBC. But maybe you're like Paul and Debbie and maybe you're ready to move in. You've passed the visiting stage, you get the e-news, you've decided to stay but you're ready to move in. And you recognise that to grow spiritually you need to be connected to a group. So maybe for you, you need to tick the I want to join a life group or volunteer in some capacity. And if you do that, we're not just going to plonk you in a group and go all the best, hope it works out. The pastoral team would love to meet with you or have coffee with you one-on-one and find the best place for you to fit. And we have an onboarding process for volunteers that will take you through and will train you and support you. So let us know if you're interested and we can introduce you around and help you make friendships and connections. Because we know you've got gifts and talents that we need. Or maybe you're at the make room stage. You've been at this church a long time and you've served in numerous different capacities and you've been in a life group for a long time and you want others to experience what you've experienced. We've got people who've expressed an interest in being in a group and we need facilitators to make that happen. Again, we'll train you and support you to help make room. Or maybe like Shirley and Antoinette, you see a belonging gap and you want to be part of making room for others to belong. Then we want to hear about that. We want to hear from you. So what is it for you? Is it believe? Is it stay? Is it move in? Or is it make space? I want to read something to you in a minute. It's called a creed. You can take it as a pledge or you can hear it as a blessing. It was written by Sheridan Voisey, who I talked about earlier, when he was on his pastoral retreat and his pilgrimage, when he was thinking about solving the problem of friendlessness. And there's a line in there, and I want you to listen out for it. There's a line in there that says, I will serve all I can. I don't mean overserve or overcommit or serve to the point of burnout. Just serve all you can, even if that's just a little bit. I will serve all I can and walk deeply with a few. So where will you serve and who will you walk deeply with this year? So let me read this creed to you. You can hear it as a prayer and close your eyes and listen to it, or hear it as a promise, but I think it's actually quite beautiful. The hand that spins the galaxies brought me into being. The one who holds the stars has made me his own. I am God's child. My life is rich and my days are sacred. I'm held by a love that's wider and higher than the farthest edges of this expanding universe. I'm a pilgrim in this world in search of wisdom and wonder. I will take new adventures and follow God into the unknown. What I achieve is not as important as the person I become. So I will seek to imitate the nail-pierced one. I will step in the direction of my strengths and talents. They are spirit-given tools for God's given tasks. I will pay attention to my persistent aspirations. They could be whispers of God. I will serve all I can and walk deeply with a few. I will aim for great things, but leave my legacy to God. The path is long and the terrain is at times hard. Still, I will not wish for another's life. I will take my place and play my part. Something important will be missed if I don't, for the hand that spins the galaxies wants me here.